Hello watchers, welcome to episode 15, the last in the series. Friends, as I look back, I'm amazed to reflect at the content we created and at the overwhelming response that we received from you. To talk about myself, I am a writer and an ardent reader, and I live for the cause of literature, and it is with this eye that I and the team at Dispatch conceived of the series of book reviews for you. I am immensely grateful to the team at Dispatch for the complete autonomy that they offered me and for all the support that they rendered to me in my realizing my vision. To reveal the book that we are going to talk about today, the book we are going to talk about today is Lolita, one of my favorite books of all time. The writer is Vladimir Nabokov, and the book was published in the year 1955. Now this is a 20th century classic, a book that is widely read and discussed about, and I'm sure that most of you would have already read it or would be planning to read it. Why I chose this book for review? There are several reasons. The primary reason is, yes, it appears in my top 5, and the second reason is that this is one book which is very challenging to review. Again, several reasons for that. Primarily because the subject is controversial and the themes are taboo, particularly for a woman in my part of the world to discuss them. Secondly, I believe that this is a really intelligent work because it involved me to delve deep into the psyches of the two unforgettable characters, and this involved a lot of meditation and a lot of mental work. Thirdly, I believe that the language is really rich in the book, and no amount of my discussion is going to do justice to what is in there. So nevertheless, I'm attempting a review to satisfy myself intellectually and also for your benefit. Now friends, a lot of literature on this book is already available in books and on internet, so I'm going to very quickly do the plot and the character summaries, and then we are going to discuss what I feel are the themes that are there in the book and the relevance of this book. Friends, now to talk of the plot, this is the story of a 37-year-old professor named Humbert Humbert. This is basically a pseudonym that he uses. So this guy is sexually obsessed with young girls between the ages 9 to 14. He suffers this condition, or he's like that because when he was younger, in his teenage years, he loses his young lover who dies of typhus. So he's unable to cope up with this loss, and he's forever stuck with this image of a young, unblemished girl. And he finds during the course of his life that he's perpetually attracted to such young girls. He's in an unhappy marriage. His wife cheats on him and eventually dies, post which he leaves for US, wherein he finds a job, and then he comes back, then he comes to English countryside. So we see in him an escapist, a person who cannot settle in one place. So when he comes to England, he's seeking to rent a place to live in, and therein he finds the love of his life, this enchanting young girl of 12 named Dolores Hayes that he falls passionately in love with. So he comes there and he finds this beautiful girl. He obsesses over, and when he's at the height of his fondness for her, he calls her Lolita. He has other endearments for her. He calls her Lo and Lola and even Dolly. And he's a very vicious fellow. He plots. He has a wicked plot wherein he marries Lolita's mother just to be close to her and to abuse her. He marries her, but in a vicious twist of events, what happens is that Lolita's mother discovers Humbert's diary, and she learns of his evil intentions for her daughter. So just when she's looking to confront him and act upon this discovery, she gets hit by a speeding car and dies. So now Humbert, he takes advantage of this, and he designs to pick Lolita from the summer camp where she is at and take her to a road trip where he plans to physically abuse her. And he does this, he achieves this abuse, he severely abuses her during this trip and otherwise. And it is through this that he eventually robs her of her innocence. Now a bit about the characters. Friends, Humbert is sly and disillusioned, yet he's intelligent and very calculative. He's also depicted as a really intellectual, a well-behaved fellow, somebody who's very handsome and desirable. He's a man of good manners and he's very eloquent in speech. Whatever is told about Lolita is through his eyes. It is him who paints a really innocent and yet flirtatious image of Lolita. So whatever we know of Lolita is Humbert's view of her. Now, this guy is also an unreliable narrator because, he has these frequent bouts of forgetfulness, and he himself owns to, not remembering what really happens in the story. And then he is a wicked liar. He manipulates everybody around himself, and it sounds like he's at times even manipulating himself. But through his charming words, he's able to gain the sympathy of the reader, though not, though we would not like it, but he manages to gain our sympathy because the way he expresses his love for Lolita is something, he does it in a really enchanting way. This is also a reason why we're never able to make out whether he's a lover or a pedophile, and this is a forever running debate, and I'll share my opinion on this later. Now, to talk about Lolita, she's this 12-year-old perfect angel who's captured the heart of Humbert. And in the words of Humbert, she's a nymphette, a seductress, and he compels the reader into believing that it is she who flirts with him, and it is she who makes him do what he does to her. And this is scary because he uses such enchanting language that many of the readers, they fall into the trap and they end up blaming the victim for what is done to her. And I shudder to think that this is the stance that our society still maintains, with rape victims and abuse victims, being made guilty for the crimes done to them. So anyway, to talk about Lolita, she, in the words of Humbert, is a perfect brat, a brat with a temper, and he accuses her thus many times, but it sounds like he's accusing her of cuteness. And this is how we as readers are misled into believing him innocent and seeing him as a lover and not as an abuser. Okay friends, moving on to the themes that the book caters to. Friends, I think that this book is about abuse and obsession. Although I would hate to call it an exploration of the psyche of the psychopath or the abuser, but it certainly is an exposition of the dark side of humanity and passion. I think that the book screams the existence of pedophilia and abuse and perverseness, and it is simply asking us to accept what we see. So now Humbert, he speaks really convincingly of his intentions for Dolores, and he paints this infinitely innocent image of Lolita, and he has this enchanting endearments for her. So such things woo the reader into believing that he's not obsessed after her, he simply loves her. So this is how we get carried away, and this is, I believe, a really excellent device because it exposes how pedophiles and abusers and psychopaths get away with what they've done. They claim to be feminists and they claim to care for women and be chivalrous, and particularly when they have a good position in society, they have manners, so they tend to be let off the hook. And I believe that these are people who have the gift of the gab, and they're almost like poets like Humbert, and this is why people just overlook them. But the horrific fact is that such people exist and they're all around us, and we are perpetually denying their existence. And I would like to question that, is this why that these people are flourishing in our society? So now to comment on the relevance of the book, friends, this is a classic masterpiece, and this is a book, when it was published, it was dismissed as erotica, and even today, people fail to understand the objectives with which it was written and what it managed to achieve during the course of the years since it was published. So for a person to claim that this is their favorite book is still taboo, and it will invite a lot of backlashing and labeling and whatnot. To talk about myself, to me, this is the work of a genius at the height of his powers. I believe that this book does not glorify the psychopath, the pedophile, or the rapist. I feel that this is simply an extremely well-written literary work which is meant to be enjoyed for its anagrams and wordplay and the dexterous use of language. It is going to be a treat for the readers to read, but certainly the negative character and his doings are going to make you cringe. But that is exactly the point. This book is going to make you feel a lot, and you'll have a difficult time getting rid of these feelings. Another reason why I feel this book is really important is that, to a mature reader, it speaks as a denouncing of your obsessive masculinities that men entertain and nurture. So in a way, this book is commanding us to acknowledge the crime, the pedophilia that exists, the abuse that exists. It is commanding us to, finally blame the abuser for it and, free the victim of the guilt. And this book is also in a way trying to initiate the discussion about this crime and this unethical thing that is so prevalent in our society even today. To put it simply, the book is trying to say that monsters exist, and even though we may route their doings and their lack of conscience and their amnesia to a difficult childhood, but this is not a grounds for their acquittal. They are guilty is something that the book is clearly pronouncing. Finally, I believe that this is a book for adults, certainly, and adults who've really adulted. This is a book for people who have a taste for literature and literary language and poetic language, and it is certainly not for people who are starting to read, and it cannot be a first book for anybody, and it's not for people who do not enjoy wordplay and literary devices and such stuff. But for lovers of literature, they cannot live without reading this one. So do comment on how you found this review. And with this, we are concluding our series of book reviews in the hope that you enjoyed the reviews and you have recommendations to last you months. And since we are looking to promote literature and we live for the cause of literature, we are certainly going to come back with a new season packed with more recommendations and detailed reviews for you to cherish. For now, I'll say goodbye and take care. Signing off, Geetika Kohli Amla at The Dispatch.